Hello, everybody. Welcome to Wow Wednesday, where we share words of wisdom. Today's topic: you don't need permission and or approval to do what God has called you to do. Let me say that again. You don't need permission and or approval to do what God has called you to do. Listen to that. That's key, because if God has called you to do something, oftentimes what we do is we try to get validated or affirmed, or we try to get permission from others to do the thing that God is calling us to do. And God only needs a willing vessel. He only needs a willing vessel to carry out his plan of what he desires to do in the earth, but he needs us to do it. He needs us to stand co-laboring with him, because it's a co-laboring effort. We are working alongside with God, and he's helping us through whatever the plan is that he has for our life. And we don't want to get too caught up in titles and positions and things of that nature, because sometimes people are often hurt. They're being rejected. They're being ostracized because of titles and positions. And when God tells you something, when God gives you a dream, when he gives you a vision, when he speaks to you, you have your own personal relationship, personal walk with him. So you know his voice. And when you know God is speaking to you and nudging you, telling you, I'm calling you for such a time as this. I'm calling you to preach. I'm calling you to prophesy. I'm calling you to evangelize. I'm calling you to teach and train my people. I'm calling you to go out into the hedges and highways and compel those that are not saved to be saved. I'm calling you to preach this gospel. Whatever God is calling you to do. You don't need permission and or approval to do those things. A lot of times, and I've seen it so many times, people are being hindered because someone is delaying the timing of them to come forth in whatever their talent or gift is, whatever that thing that God is calling them to do is laying on their hearts and is stirring up in their bellies, and they're having those that are so-called their leader, or so-called a person that they admire or they look up to, that they have been encouraged by, or that have been training them, or that have been under their tutelage, as you want to call that. Sometimes we get wrapped up in people too much. When God says go, it's time to go. I knew back in 2008 when God called me, I knew that it was time for me to go forth. And it was just by God's divine intervention and his blessings that was on my life, and him putting me and plugging me into the right places, that there was no hindrance there. And so when you're venturing out and you're doing the work of the Lord, you're doing the thing that God has put in your belly or put in your heart to do, sometimes you have to find your secret place and pray. Ask God to block every hindrance, anything that tries to block the flow of what God is doing, anything that's trying to slow down the momentum of what God is trying to do, anything that is trying to detour you from what your goal is, what your vision is, what your mission is, what your assignment is. Then you want to pray that God will remove those barriers out of your life, because people can be barriers. People can be barriers. Events can be barriers. Things that we put before God can be barriers. So we have to be watching these types of things. We have to be discerning of this type of stuff, because there is a time. And see, God operates in timing. And so when that time comes for you to go forth, then there is no question about it. Ain't no debating about it. Ain't no arguments about it. We're not indecisive about it. When God is nudging you about a thing, and you always consulting God through prayer and consecration when you're going off into any area where he's trying to take you. But what I'm saying is, you don't need no permission from some leader or some, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying trying to buck up against no leadership or going up against your pastor or doing this, that, or the other. Within that ministry, if he or she has not given you the permission or the authority to work or operate in their house, or whatever God is calling you to do, then God may not be calling you to work inside of that house. He may be calling you to work outside the house. And see, I think people get caught up with that because if they feel like they can't be utilized in a certain area where they have plug themselves into, they feel like, well, that's it, then I can't operate, I can't flow, I can't move, I can't do. But God calls us out. God is calling many of us out because the people are out there. You feel what I'm saying? You may not be able to launch your business where you are, but you may have to get out and step outside of your environment of where you are to go and find where God wants to plug you into, and he'll send the people, he'll send the resources, he'll send whatever you need. But you don't want to get hung up on the fact that I just have to be in this particular space to be used by God, or for God to open up something for me, for him to open up doors for me. I have to be in this specific area. No, God can move you from here to there. He can move you 10 miles down the road. He can move you 30 minutes outside of your town, and open some things up to you. God is bigger than the area where you consider you being blessed, your blessed place. He's bigger than that. He's bigger than that environment that you're in. He's bigger than that ministry, that business, or wherever you are. He's bigger. So don't minimize the power and the awesomeness of God. God can work anywhere. He can utilize you anywhere he desires to utilize you. We just don't want to get caught up in the people situation, because it just seems it's so unfortunate. You find so many people who leave this earth because they didn't get permission to be who God called them to be, because someone held them back. This is not the season for that. It's not the season of being held back because somebody refused to give me a license, or refused to give me some little piece of paper, or refused to put me up because they don't feel like I'm ready, or they don't feel, especially when I know my position in God, and I know that I've been on the altar and I've been seeking his face, and I'm doing this thing the right way, and I'm not trying to demand my way or push my way. I'm not trying to be Jezebel. I'm not trying to buck up against nobody's authority. But if I know something's stirring up in me and God is leading me in a place, then I just need to go forth and say, Lord, wherever you send me, I will go. Like Isaiah said, send me, I go. Wherever you want me to go, wherever you desire for me to be, I'll go. But I don't want to get locked in. I don't want to get locked in to my environment. I don't want to get locked into this building. I don't want to get locked into my house and say that this is the only place. No, God is bigger than that. And we have to think beyond our environment, think beyond our areas of influence, because that's where God is trying to take us right now. He's trying to take us out of our comfort zone. Stop trying to get so comfortable and be so comfortable where you are, and start allowing God to branch you out from where you are, taking you out beyond your borders. All right. He said he will enlarge your territory. Come on now. You may have this territory right here, but he wants to enlarge your territory. If you allow him to, if you allow God to, he will expand your borders. He will expand your borders. You hear me? And so we don't want to get, like I said, locked in or locked up into this mindset of, if this person don't give me, then I can't do this, that, or the other. We don't want to be in that position. That's where a lot of our ancestors have placed, that's why I'm going to say this, that's why a lot of our ancestors did not make it to the promised land, or they did not get to see all of their full potential, because of that very thing that I'm talking about. Very thing that I'm talking about. And it's from church, from slavery, from all of this stuff that has happened to us over the years. Our ancestors over the years did not get a chance to really tap into their potential, all of what God wanted to do in them and through them. But God said, now is not the season for that. It's the time for you to break out and break forth. It's the time for you to allow me to expand your borders of where you are, and stop trying to be safe. Stop trying to play it safe and let me expand your borders. Let me enlarge your territory. And let me tell you this too. You will get into places and situations now in this walk where if it's just you may not get a cheerleader. You may not get your spouse. You may not get your children. You may not get those that's closest to you, your family members to support you. I've been through that. I deal with that a lot. You got to keep going. You got to know in your heart and in your spirit what God is calling you to do, and you got to go forth. Even if you don't get their permission, even if you don't get their approval, even if they don't recognize you, even if they don't listen to you, you got to still go forth. Look at Noah. Look at what Noah had to go through. He was trying to warn the people. A storm is coming. A storm is coming. They thought he was foolish. Yeah, they didn't want to listen to him. They didn't want to acknowledge him. They didn't want to acknowledge that he had this relationship with God. But guess what happened? Many of them drowned. Many of them died because they did not prepare themselves for what was coming. And Noah was sounding the alarm. Noah was trying to get their attention, just like God is trying to get our attention right now. And so you just have to go with it. If it ain't but one, if it ain't just but one person that's willing to listen out of 300-some thousand people, hey, you spoke to that one. God gave you a word. You have to release that word. You got to go forth. No matter who's bagging you in the natural. Because God is always bagging you up. You better believe that one. He bagging you up. But you may not get the full support of those that are around you. That's okay. Don't get discouraged behind that. Don't get discouraged. I'm telling you, I've been there. I'm still going through that. I love my family. I love my children. I love my mom and dad and siblings and all of that. But hey, I know all about the fact that I don't get no full support when it comes to this side of things. You feel what I'm saying? But like I said, I still love my family, and I adore my family. But I got to go forth. I got to do what God called me to do. Regardless, you got to get to that place. Regardless, I'm going to do what God is calling me to do. Don't need no permission. Don't need your approval. Don't need your pat on the back for me to do this thing. Because in the end of all this, I got to answer to him. I'm answering to God. I got to give account of my life. We all got to give account of our life on this earth. We have to be found doing what God called us to do. Because we don't want to stand before him and he say, I told you. I instructed you. And you didn't. Whoo, Lord Jesus, we don't want to get that far into this thing. We've been living this thing all we know how, and we get to that place where we stand for God and he say that to us. No. All right, now this is an encouraging message, y'all. Do what God has called you to do. Forsaking all that, he said, pick up your cross. Deny who you are. Deny. Pick up your cross. Follow him. Where he leads me, I will follow. That's love. That's love. It takes sacrifice. It takes dedication. It takes commitment. But more importantly, that's love. Because if you love God, you're going to do what he has commissioned you to do. Do you love God? Then you won't be wrestling with the assignment. You won't be wrestling with the mission. Do what God called you to do. You don't need permission. You don't need approval. Do what he called you to do. All right, you all. This is our Wow Wednesday. You take care. God bless you all. Have a wonderful, productive Wednesday. All right, you guys. All right. Bye-bye now.